of Cauldron and Craft. Welcome back to my channel. On this channel, I talk about various things in a spiritual context, so lots of different crafts and gardening, but all kind of centered around a nature-based spiritual practice. On this video, I want to talk about Samhain or Samhain, whichever way you want to pronounce it, that actually means summer's end, and it comes from a Celtic tradition of the end of the harvest. And there are so many videos out there that talk about the history of Samhain, and so I'm going to focus actually on the more of the spiritual aspects of some of the activities. And I would love to hear in the comments what you're going to be doing for Samhain this year. And similar to my video about Mabon, in my researching, Samhain is not actually Halloween. Like they're not one and the same, like synonymous. Halloween, of course, came out of Samhain traditions, but they're not the same thing, and you don't have to celebrate Samhain on October 31st. It's actually traditionally sort of celebrated over a course of days, and a lot of people celebrate Samhain on the full moon closest to October 31st. So that's one thing I wanted to just get out of the way from the beginning, is the idea that you have to celebrate this or recognize this day on Halloween night, or even on November 1st. As I mentioned, the Celts would celebrate sort of this season of death in the final harvest. They believed that the veil between worlds became thin right at this time, meaning that the spirits could come to the land of the living, and that's why they would dress up in costumes to sort of ward off evil spirits and fairies. But there are so many different traditions from both Ireland, Scotland, and Wales into the United States that it's kind of hard to cover all in one video. But the overarching theme is death, and I think that's really important to talk about. Why all these traditions came to be how they are. So. And with the theme being death, that's what I wanted to talk about in the spiritual aspect. At this time in sort of mid-autumn, we've already passed the fall equinox and we're well into autumn. The leaves are starting to fall from the trees and plants are dying back. And from a spiritual aspect, we are also sort of turning inward. And if you think of yourself like a tree, all the outward leaves and everything on the outside is falling away, and you're turning all of your energy inside yourself and focusing on what's inside. Same with flowers and plants and things like that. They're conserving their energy down into their roots and hunkering down for the cold, dark winter months. And we're doing the same thing. And that's why the Celts believed that the veil was thin, because all of those things are dying back. At Mabon, we talked about examining things in your life and what's no longer serving you to get ready to release it. Well, now is the time to do that releasing. So anything that you reflected back on at the fall equinox that you thought this is no longer working for me in my life, whether it's a thought process, an idea, a relationship, any of those things that are no longer fitting your life, you're going to get rid of it now, so that come springtime, you have some new things that you're making space for what good can come to you now. And with the theme of death, many people choose to celebrate Samhain by honoring the dead. And the most immediate form of that are your deceased loved ones and pets, and setting up, like lighting candles for them, maybe having pictures of them, and talking to them around this time of the year is really comforting for people. The next level would be your ancestors, and having come from white colonizers' ancestors, I do realize that the ancestor thing can be a little bit hairy, because on one hand, we're sort of now coming to terms with what our ancestors have done and the privilege that we hold now, and making reparations for that. However, at the most basic level, even if you're you have a fraught relationship with your ancestors, you are still alive here in this moment right now because of all the people who lived before you, that you can be alive and experience the world and the universe and make reparations for things that you feel like need to be done, but also just for the universe to know itself. You are alive now because of all the people who lived before you. So that's just something to think about. If you're similar to me and have sort of this weird relationship with ancestors and how you got here. The next level of recognizing death in this time of year are the ideas and the attitudes that are no longer serving you. So like we talked about a little bit earlier, you can recognize the death of those things and realize that you are growing as a person for that. Relationships, if you have relationships in your life that are not serving you anymore for whatever reason, if you have toxic relationships in your life, or anything that is not going to move you forward in the direction that you want to go, you can acknowledge and grieve it. You can grieve the loss of that relationship, knowing that you're going to continue to move forward. And the last one is kind of sad, but one thing in terms of death that you can think about are dreams. Are there dreams that you've had that you realize that you're not meant for that dream? Or maybe it just didn't happen for you this year, but you're still putting it, for the future. Those are all the things that you can reflect on in this time of year for death. A really good activity for this time of year that I thought was really interesting in just reading about the history of Samhain is divination. So if you're stuck mentally thinking about any of these things, I highly recommend some form of divination that will help your mind move towards the answers. I personally like tarot. That's my thing that I like to use to guide myself mentally. But any type of divination would work that you gravitate towards. And one thing that was really interesting is a lot of the activities that we do today for Halloween or like fall festivals, like bobbing for apples, that was a form of divination back for the Celts, and it was actually a way to divine like who someone would marry. And I thought that was really funny that so many of the activities that we have now have this ritualistic type of root, and that's what makes it such a fun holiday, I think, because we all acknowledge that the earth is sort of dying back and going to sleep, and we celebrate in all these different ways, like having spooky decorations and emphasizing the dying back of things. But then there's also, make sure you're leaving room for this reflective time and this spiritual time. Some things that I will be doing, it's a little bit early, but I wanted to get this video out well ahead of time so you have plenty of time to think about these things leading up to actual Samhain time. I'm going to say Samhain week because it starts on a Monday, or Halloween's on a Monday, but then like I'm personally going to go to a ritual the following weekend, so it's kind of going to be this whole week-long deal. So I'll probably be making some colcannon, which is a traditional Irish dish of potatoes and cabbage, but cabbage in particular and kale were really emphasized in the symbolism and some of the things that the Celts did before the Irish brought over these traditions from Ireland into America. I'm probably gonna have apple cider because apples have the theme through most of fall, and I'll definitely do some divination, tarot, and I might even try to do a ritual on my own, but we'll see. But let me know in the comments for sure what you're going to be doing, even if it's just taking your kids trick-or-treating, because of course we all know that has the roots in the ancient Celtic times when people were trying to escape the fairies and the ghouls and goblins that are coming through the veil. Or are you hosting a dumb supper where you're going to have a place set for your loved ones and ancestors to dine with you? I would love to hear all about it because I don't always get into all of the things. I feel like I don't always have the energy to do those things, but I love hearing when other people tell me about it. So definitely let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.